HateWatchers is back for another season of House of the Dragon, also known as Hot D, beginning with our breakdown and review of episode 1, entitled A Son for a Son. This Hot D has experienced some shrinkage in season 2, dropping its episode count from 10 to 8, which, while disappointing, still leaves Hot D on par with the national average length. Episode length, that is. Besides, we all know it's more about how you use your episode, rather than how big your episode list is. But enough of the foreplay, let's jump right into the breakdown for episode 1. Spoilers ahead. We begin the second season in Winterfell, where winter is soon approaching, and the local soldiers are getting paid in massive crack rocks, except this guy who gets a lump of coal. Jacaerys is in the north to recruit Cregan Stark for a new boy band he's starting, the Boys on the Wall. Back on Dragonstone, Daemon wants revenge for Lucerys' death. He tries and fails to recruit Rhaenys for a sortie, intent on killing Aemond and his dragon Vhagar, as he demands a son for a son. Hey, that's the episode title! Elsewhere, Rhaenyra is sad, presumably because she had bought Lucerys some early birthday gifts, and now she's past the return-by date. At Driftmark, the sea snake Corlys Velaryon thanks this guy for saving his life, and then this guy says that Luke's death was the blackest of treacheries, and the two of them try not to laugh at the line they were given. In the royal chambers, Ser Cristan Cole's tongue is worming about off in a damp, musty chamber of its own. At a small council meeting, King Aegon's 2-year-old son Jaehaerys is bullying the Master of Coin Tywin Lannister, when Tywin sees a shooting star and says, "I wish your fucking head would get sawed off by morons." Sir Foot Fetish stops the Dowager Queen Alicent and asks her the last time she painted her toenails, prompting her to immediately feel the need to bathe. Rhaenyra swoops down on her dragon, hoping to show the common folk that they're not all that different, but she stumbles upon her late son's cloak, which has the remaining 14 chunks of her son in it, and it squishes when she touches it. Ew. Aegon holds an audience for his people upon the Iron Throne, where he gets too chummy with his subjects, vociferously inviting this one to come drink with him later. Otto tells the king that if he grants this peasant this niceness, then every peasant will come beg at the foot of his throne, and Sir Foot Fetish comes waddling when he hears the word foot. Afterward, Sir Larys pulls Aegon aside and says, "So what was up with all that feet talk in there?" Otto visits his daughter in her chambers and asks her why everything is so sticky in here. He makes it obvious to her that the path to victory is now wrought with violence. The Blacks, as in the faction to be very clear, search a ship, but only find that one hooker from season 1. The hooker is brought to Daemon, who is pissed that they kind of fixed this character's accent and he can't make fun of it anymore. Rhaenyra finally returns from her long absence due to the sad, and speaks the only 4 words she says in this episode.
"I want Aemond Targaryen."
Jace returns and can't even get his report out before breaking down. What a wuss. Then the Blacks have a funeral where they barbecue the remaining chunks of Lucerys. Daemon sneaks into King's Landing wearing his up-to-no-good cloak and buys his way into the city with a bag of donut holes. A bribe this guard called the Mound, a distant cousin of the Mountain, can't resist. Daemon then recruits Dumb and Dumber to kill Aemon Targaryen. Or, if they can't find him, just go in and do the most fucked up stuff you can think of. Meanwhile, Aegon and his boys are getting drunk and forming a boy band of their own, Aegon and the Dragon Dick Riders. Out of nowhere, we get the most brutal scene in the history of Game of Thrones.
What did the bad man do?
He took him with his foot, and he kicked him! That's what he did!
Dumb of the Dumb and Dumber duo is up on the royal floor where he is literally looking for any guard, but he can't find a single one. They don't find Aemond, but they do find Helaena and her 2 toddlers. They take her necklace and then begin sawing off Jaehaerys' 2-year-old head, and Helena's like, "No! My necklace!" before grabbing her daughter and making a calm exit. It wouldn't have mattered if Helaena had screamed out though, because her guard, Ser Cristan Cole, wouldn't have heard her over his own moaning as Alicent bounced on Cole's pole. They ask Helaena what's wrong, and she's like, "It's okay, I'll wait till you're done." And the episode finishes before Ser Cristan Cole can. Well, we've reached that point in the video where we have to decide if this episode was a great watch or a hate watch. I thought this episode was simply fine, to be honest. It got the job done as far as reintroducing us to the Targaryen civil war that's bubbling just under the surface, and it introduced some new storylines like Ser Cristan Cole's muff diving expedition in Lake Alicent. But beyond those things, the episode still felt like a bit of a letdown. I'm sure that's mostly just due to the high expectations we have for this show. We thought they'd begin the season with a bit more fire and blood, but all in due time, I guess. The show still looks incredible, it still carries a good amount of intrigue, and it's still packed with interesting characters that are well acted. But on the other hand, it became a bit plodding and bordered on being a bit boring at times. It almost felt like they opened the season with a filler episode, just sort of filling us in on where everything stands before things heat back up. So we're giving episode 1 a GreatWatch designation, but it's actually fairly close to being a debate watch. For this one episode, House of the Dragon just squeaks by, based on its previous season earning this show the benefit of the doubt. It was nice to revisit the Wall and get the Starks some screen time, always a cozy experience in Game of Thrones. There was a great scene where Rhaenyra and her son Jacaerys aren't able to hold back their mourning for the loss of Lucerys. And the episode upped the stakes with some nice, brutal royal baby murder right at the end. Quite a few people are saying that they butchered that scene in comparison to the same disturbing scene in the book, and that this version felt more like Dumb and Dumber bungling an assassination rather than a calculated, heinous murder. I haven't read the book, and from what I've read of this infamous blood and cheese scene, it does sound like the show screwed up the weight of Helena's choice, and thus screwed up a scene that could have been on par with the Red Wedding in terms of shock value. While the scene might not live up to its literary counterpart, it was still fairly brutal in its own right, and it might still get the job done for casual viewers. There are some decent scenes showing Alicent's struggle to remain virtuous and clean when she's clearly hypocritical and surrounded by people of low virtue. For example, she's forcing Ser Cole to break his oath when she's bouncing on his pogo stick or pushing his head into the cave once ruled by Viserys the Gross, but at the same time she had a huge problem with Rhaenyra sleeping with the same person. So she's got a lot of self-made baggage to deal with. And that's even before she has to deal with Sir Clubfoot. And there's an interesting question to be asked about what exactly Daemon instructed Dumb and Dumber to do in the castle if they couldn't find Aemond. Either way, picking these two idiots is going to bring him a lot of blowback. This delegation to these morons was a departure from how it happened in the book, so the show is putting the consequences more squarely on Daemon's shoulders. They also fixed one of my gripes with the first season by making some of the Greens more relatable than the power-hungry, raping and murdering usurpers we met in season 1. On the other hand, it's a little silly that these two assassins were so easily able to move around the castle and the royal family where there are no guards posted at a time of war. Sure, Cole was busy plowing Alicent, but there realistically should have been more than just him. And I think the show risks being too subtle with its intrigue at times. For those who are really on top of the show, or read the book, or watch videos analyzing each episode, there's a ton of intrigue to pick up on even in a simple scene like Otto Hightower subtly manipulating his fiery grandson Aemond in a short conversation. But for most viewers, this scene isn't going to make much of an impact. Hopefully it's one of those things that's a positive for attentive viewers without sacrificing the experience for others. Like I said though, my biggest issue with this episode is one of my own making, really, as I simply expected more of an explosive return for the show. A lot of last season was spent simply setting up the chessboard for the conflict to come, but it looks like we've got a bit more waiting to do. Good thing I'm patient. Just for something to nitpick over, I didn't like the thematic change with the new intro. I prefer the grandiosity of the old intro, with castles and rivers of blood. The new tapestry intro reminded me too much of the Wheel of Time, or Disney Star Wars' new thread magic bullshit. And hopefully it's just a hollow aesthetic change and not a nod to the show becoming softer. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of the show, and it looks good for what it is, but it's worth a mention. That all being said, this tapestry does show some really interesting and important history for the Targaryen family. Lastly, it's a simple thing, but I really appreciate a TV show premiering with just one episode for a change. Not only does it make churning out these videos a bit easier for us, but it's also a sign of confidence that HBO knows they have a high quality product and don't feel that they need more than one episode to get viewers hooked on the show. And I know it's Max now, but fuck that, it's still HBO. HBO consistently delivers high-end shows, and with a franchise like Game of Thrones, they don't have to release multiple episodes right off the bat just to manipulate the asinine minutes viewed metric other streaming services harp on to inflate a show's perceived popularity. I always think it's stupid when a show releases viewership data and says that they had 540 million minutes, wow. If they premiere the first 3 episodes at once, and each episode is 60 minutes, that 540 million minutes watched is only 3 million viewers. But they assume most people will just think 540 million, wow, big number. Overall, while this premiere didn't blow me away or meet my admittedly high expectations for this show's return, it got the job done. The episode did play a bit better the second time through, I'll say. And the show still looks incredible, it's well acted, and positively dripping with intrigue for the season to come. What did you think of this premiere episode? Was the pacing to your liking, or did you think it was tedious at times? Do you get the same feeling that in terms of production quality, House of the Dragon is just head and shoulders above other shows at this point? Let us know in the comments. Also remember to click that thumbs up down below if you liked the video, and consider subscribing to HateWatchers to stay up to date on this season of House of the Dragon. Thank you for having a bit of blood and cheese with us today, and we'll catch you on the next one.